I would like to welcome Alan to the stage because we have a lightning chat on some of his work at Target3D. So this should be really enlightening if you have, you know, never heard of Target3D or some of the technologies we've been discussing. So Alan, can I welcome you to unmute and video yourself? And
Hello,
we'll
morning.
just have a lightning chat this morning. And you're in an office. Whoa, what's that
Yeah, yeah,
like?
yeah. We're in our office in Shoreditch, and we've got lots of space, so we can keep distanced and still work. So we're feeling very privileged with that.
Well, good morning, sir. It's really nice to have you here, Alan. Thank you very much for taking some time out of your busy schedule to join us. I'm sure there's quite a few people on the call that have not heard of Target3D before. So why don't you give us the overview and let me know if you need to share anything, of course.
Sure, of course. Thanks, Chris. Great to be here. Target3D, we're a predominantly motion capture and 3D tracking company, and we have two kind of sides to the service offerings we have. So one side is consulting, specifying, designing and installing motion capture systems for people to utilize. And the other side is having those technologies here at Target3D where people come to hire us out to do motion capture if they don't necessarily want to invest in a system. So that in a broad stroke is us. We've got a couple of offices, one here in serving the UK in London, and we've got an office in Valencia serving Spain and Portugal.
Right.
So that's.
I'm going to ask you to break it down one step further.
Sure.
Let's talk about motion capture and mocap in terms of a practical sense. What do we mean, and how is it currently being used?
Okay, so motion capture is the digital acquisition of the movement of people or objects, and it's most kind of commonly associated with animation and VFX. So probably the most frequent example I always turn to is Gollum from Lord of the Rings, because it's a very popular and great example of motion capture. And that's where Andy Serkis drove the Gollum character and did full performance capture, both from body movement and facial expression. So in a broad sense, that's motion capture. So it's acquiring this information digitally and then putting it into either game engines or things like After Effects or Final Cut to then reskin that data in some way. So you could represent yourself as Gollum or as a character from Planet of the Apes or a dinosaur, and then kind of drive that motion. And what's quite different from, say, keyframing movement, the human is immensely perceptible in discerning the difference between something which is like real human movement and something which is kind of very rigid, digitally animated. And I think from kind of my experience, it's really the fact that humans don't have anything which is so necessarily symmetrical in their movement. They have all these kind of weird quirks and nuances based on, individuality, and that is perceived by the viewer, and therefore it kind of adds to the desire for people to do motion capture because it brings that realism to digital characters.
It's a fascinating space, and it's becoming even more pervasive these days, right? And hence the reason for why we're talking about it now. I'm really keen to talk about some of your great work. Now, the first thing I wanted to talk about is your recent phrase and collaboration phrase into immersive theatre and immersive theatre production. So how did you want to do this, Alan? Because we talked yesterday about maybe having some slides or showing the website. Do you want to just sort of freestyle and talk?
I mean, I can share the website link in the chat here, and I can talk about the project.
Yeah, please.
Really, because it's really an exciting project. It was being developed by Reality Check Productions, and they're, what's nice and what seems to be developing in the digital space is a huge amount of collaboration. And I think we've seen a lot of that with the Audience of the Future projects, where lots of different types of organizations are coming together to create show their specialization, create, and then deliver something awesome as a combined option. So Reality Check Productions have created the round. I'll just put it here in the chat so people can have a look at it. This project, the aspiration of this project is bringing real-time theater to an audience who may not necessarily be able to leave their location. So they have created this platform. We're only doing the motion capture side of it. So we're bringing our motion capture skills and expertise to help drive the performance capture. But that's where our remit stops, and the remit of the other creatives are, skinning that character, creating a digital avatar of them, making the performance or the avatars look realistic. And then there's another company which is creating an application to be able to deliver this to multiple people. And the ultimate output from this is you at home with an application being able to see this performance using augmented reality. So you look through your smartphone, and where you situate your virtual environment through your smartphone, say on your coffee table, you can see that performance happening, knowing it's happening real time from another location. So that really is bringing kind of live and real-time theater into your environment, and is really groundbreaking. It's really exciting, and is kind of a real good indication of where things are going to be going, right? In terms of,
it seems to dovetail off the point that we were talking about just a moment ago about the Dream Online and the Royal Shakespeare collaboration, right? For anybody that has not been able to open up the link in the chat, the website sort of shows on the coffee table a Midsummer's Night's Dream essentially being projected directly into the middle of your room. And if you just let your imagination run wild with that for a moment, that's, the sort of the possibilities around that could be potentially endless, right? So I think with that in mind, Alan, tell us a bit more about, like, maybe the sort of setup and what sort of happens in terms of how one partner would work with you, and what that kind of means, either from a starting point through to sort of execution, if that's okay.
Particularly in relation to this project with the round, or just
this would be quite useful as a case study, yeah, to talk about what you did, and then maybe how that might maybe differ or align with working with other sorts of organizations that are wanting to bring sort of motion capture into their sort of immersive elements.
Okay, yeah, okay, cool. So I suppose that at the outset, it's worth mentioning that game engine technology like Unreal Engine or Unity 3D have really kind of been the gateway to enable people to do a lot of real time. So kind of like if I was to break it down and describe the process, we are able to capture human motion in a fairly rudimentary fashion. So we have a camera system which is set up on a perimeter, and we have a performer who's wearing a suit. That data has a naming convention, which it then drives a digital character in a game engine like Unreal or Unity 3D. So there's a whole whole specialization in creating avatars of their own. You can get free and relatively inexpensive avatars. You can download them from places like TurboSquid. But if you really want to then start, upping the quality, upping the fidelity, upping the detail in the nuance of the motion and the movement, you then probably might engage with someone who creates avatars for a living, or that's part of their repertoire. So that's a whole kind of area in itself, driving digital characters, creating digital characters which can be driven by motion capture. So, I mean, for us, the typical process when people want to do motion capture with us, if they're not buying a system or they want to buy a system to do it, we always request their digital character first, and then we do some test animation on that character, from motion capture to see how we physically move it. And then from there, we do a capture session, which involves quite a few people. They'll come down, it's almost like filming a film production where we have a fairly predefined set of processes to go through to be able to do all the takes. we record several takes, and then we choose a hero one, and then we deliver that data to the client, who then puts it into their application. And that's kind of like a post-production, that's a post non-real-time application, maybe for computer games and things. But for real-time, the process is pretty much the same, as you just don't have that review period. All the data streamed real-time into a game engine and then driven from there to an output. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely, absolutely it does. And I'm keen to come on to some of your other work. So you don't obviously just deal with production. You're involved in some R&D and research with the likes of Goldsmith University. So maybe you could just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. I think I will point out, we're quite staid. We're quite hot. We're just hardware people at the end of the day, and it's people like Reality Check Productions or Goldsmith University who do all the creative, who come with the creative ideas and really bring these things to life. So Goldsmiths are working with a university in Singapore called LaSalle University, and they wanted to explore this concept about dance and expression in real time from different locations. So utilizing a slightly different type of motion capture technology, it's called an inertial suit technology, where your system's kind of self-contained, it's derived movement. I won't bore you anymore with the kind of details, technical differences, but it's a very portable system. And what they've done is, in partnership with this university in Singapore, LaSalle had the same suit, Goldsmiths had the same suit. And what they wanted to do is have two dancers in real time doing a dance performance, which was combined in a game engine on the internet or through the internet in real time. And what they wanted to explore with all the latency and all the other kind of overheads which you might want to take into account about driving digital data over the internet, were they still able to have a organic and collaborative dance experience between the two dancers? So could the two dancers feed off each other in terms of their movements? So nothing was choreographed. So they had some basic kind of outlines about how they wanted to move, but they didn't actually choreograph the dance. And they had this project where they tried it out, and it worked. There were some issues with it initially, and they've since gone on to kind of develop this project, and it's developing, it's going to the next phases. But they had some issues to do with latency. They had some issues to do with they couldn't have too detailed models because it would have added latency and slowed down performances. But ultimately, from either side, they were able to do a dance performance across continents. So it's called Dancing Across Continents. I'll put a link in the chat here as well about that project, which again, it opens up this this idea that actually, going forward, and probably the only positive thing we might be able to point to as a result of COVID is people have brought a lot of these things to the fore to say, what can we do in real time? What can we do from home? What can we do from very constrained physical conditions? What does the internet offer us? And people are really pushing the boundaries there. So this really opens up the landscape to say, rather than being as a kind of static avatar in a virtual environment, could you be a dynamic avatar, right? And rather than just being, if you're in there in VR headset and controllers, could you be a full body, and can people respond to your entire body movements? It's really kind of sort of bringing the matrix along, isn't it?
And it's also really participatory, right? This is the thing. It's not just about computer programmers creating content that's able to then move and be animated. You kind of need, you have to have people or animals or things that are animate to be able to bring it all to life. Obviously, we've only got a couple of minutes, but I think it would be useful for people to understand, if they want to know more about what Target3D do, or if they want to take some first steps into mocap. I know that you do some educational activities as well. So maybe you could just give a couple of points around, how would you take some first steps, where to find you, and what the sort of potential for people getting involved could be.
Cool. Okay. So there's various options. I mean, please come find us, target3d.co.uk, and reach out. We've got some contact forms if you want to get some more information. We do, if you're interested in becoming a experienced motion capture performer, we do performance capture workshops, and you can see those on our website if you want to come down and kind of have a day learning how to act in mocap, because that's also a kind of defined discipline in a way, because of the way in which you drive virtual characters. In terms of accessibility to motion capture, there's various levels, right? You can go, like a lot of things, there's very entry level solutions which start from, you know, if you wanted to dabble in a bit of programming, there's open CV algorithms which do skeletal tracking both for 2D and 3D. And you can start investing in inertial suits like the ones which Goldsmith and LaSalle used for dancing across continents, from as little as £1,200, £1,500, and you can go to town with it all and set up motion capture rigs, which, you know, cost millions if you really want to. There are, you know, all sorts of SDKs and accessibility APIs for things like Microsoft Connect, depth sensors, Intel Real sensors. So having a play around with all these things would definitely be useful. Yeah, and we're open to doing all manner of types of projects and collaborations. So
like the first steps would be get in touch with sort of the technical kind of support partners and specialists like yourselves, maybe come along to a workshop, jump into a mocap suit and play around so you can see what the potential is. And I know myself, like, I've had fun jumping into one of Target3D mocap suits, as has my husky dog.
Yeah.
We even managed to motion capture her. So, you know, it's a lot of fun. Allan, we've sadly run out of time now, but it's been fantastic to speak to you and just great to have you along, mate. And yeah, I wish you all the best, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. Nice to speak with you, and yeah, take care. See you soon.